Meeting to order. Today is Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 5:30. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? No? Okay, at this time, we'll take any public communication from visitors in the crowd. We have a few people here. Anybody at this time want to get up and speak as a public representative? I know we have a few here to speak on agenda items, so. Okay, hearing and seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting. Move on to approval of the April 10th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. If we can get a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 10th, 2023 regular.
Motion by Commissioner Mutter.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Freilich. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carried. All right, we'll move on to item 1, presentation from the Bismarck Mandan Chamber Leadership Group Project. Andrew Strami is here as a representative for the group to throw some ideas at us. Hi, Andrew.
Thanks. Good evening, President Meshke, Commissioners. You can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not here to talk about city planning tonight. I'm here to talk about something fun. I'm here on behalf of the Chamber EDC's leadership program, which I'll kind of take my slides and allow it to help me narrate that a little bit. This is a program that's about a year long, and they take folks from different industries across the metro area to get us exposed to issues, experiences, initiatives that are underway in the metro area through issue days, of course, that are half or full days. We represent a variety of different industries. Our project alone has an electrical engineer, we have someone who leads the customer service team, we have someone in media, someone in healthcare, of course, so a lot of different perspectives in my project group. And towards the end of this program, we do engage in a community field project, research the need for it to try and figure out if that's something that is wanted in our community. The picture on your screen is, of course, taken a few weeks ago, if we can remember that record snow year, of a hill in Sunset Park, a Park District property on the west side of Mandan. Our project background sort of stemmed from, I think the group initially wanted to do something public facing. We wanted to create a public space, whether that was something that would be in the winter or the summer. It all sort of generated around, maybe it was going to be food trucks, or maybe it would be something related to a skiing and snowboarding terrain park. We kind of landed in something winter-based because we do know that there is a lot of interest in winter-based placemaking in North Dakota at the moment, and a long winter, folks are looking for things to do, right? So Mandan's a hilly city. I think we all know that as we traverse our community here, and there is not a place that is endorsed as a sledding hill in Mandan. There's no place where on the Park District website it says, this is the sledding hill, right? And we think that a hilly city with 5 or 6 months of winter, depending on the year, should have a sledding hill, right? It's a family-friendly amenity, cheap. All you need is gravity and really terrain to make it work. So right now, folks looking to go to a sledding hill that's marketed or well-known across the community, they will be going to Bismarck for that, and that's a market of potentially 25,000 people who'd want to sled in our community. Of course, the only other major destination would be Huff Hills, south of Mandan as well. So we talked about pretty big projects, we've talked about small projects, and kind of scaled it down to something incremental that we think that the board might be able to consider supporting. So again, the opportunity statement for our group is that folks living here do need to travel outside the community to go to a legit, get your heart racing sledding hill. And that would be that 300 or 400 foot long thing. And one of the opportunities would be to create that in Sunset Park, we believe. So it's possible that a multi-phase winter park is something that could be of interest to the community, but really tonight we're just here to try and sell you on or get your support for supporting Cole and staff to figure out a designated sledding hill in our community. Of course, nothing's more fun than a couple frills, right? So some of the things that we think would be a cool value add for this, similar to like a little free library, for example, a sled library could be built for folks. Maybe it's a couple who doesn't have school-age kids anymore, and they have all these sleds left in their garage. They could perhaps donate it to a sled library where folks can take them and put them back when they're done sledding and not need to lug one there, or consider with some of the facilities in Sunset Park the ability to rent snowshoes or cross-country skis and ice skates, for example. if it all works out. Other things that we think would be nice to have would be something like solar lighting and a warming house, but that will be further down the road. I do want to invite one of our team members up here, Joe Rinaldi, who's joining us. He was one of the folks I wanted to introduce, and I should go back. We do have Terry Sovak as well, and Greg Owen, who are joining us. Terry's with MDU, and Greg is with Capital Electric. Joe, I'm going to give it to you to talk about the survey.
Hey everyone. So the survey that we did, we actually released it on kxnet.com and we released it to the community. 592 responses were in total. 35% of them were from the city of Mandan. So that was the 58554 zip code. And 55% were from Bismarck specifically. So all the zip codes, it went from north to south. And the rest of the 10% that participated in the survey were from all over, whether it's like New Salem, Steele, Wilton, and pretty much all positive from there. And I think one of them that was the big one was, would a sledding hill add value to this city? And overwhelmingly, people said absolutely agree. And again, that was Mandan, Bismarck, and the surrounding areas. And agree, so pretty much only less than 5% were saying somewhat agree. And another big one was the location. So how was Sunset Park, if it was easy to drive to, park, things like that. And really, overwhelmingly, again, this was absolutely agree overall. Like pretty much 91% were in that category. And again, that was mostly Mandan and the surrounding Bismarck area. People were agreeing to this. And as Andrew was just saying about the added features, like a potential, especially with like a warming house, with bathrooms and kind of a place to change and, warm up, especially when we do have some of those cold days. A lot of people saw value in that, especially that you see here over 90% did. So about 92% absolutely agree on that. Just kind of a place to, warm up and just, an added bonus to, and this would be, again, maybe in the future, if that's something that would be possible. And as Andrew was saying, kind of like if the next phase of this project would add different things and different opportunities, people did like the idea of like a night tubing with lights and winter activities like ice skating, cross-country skiing, because this area, especially the Sunset Park area, has kind of a lot of space to do different things, snowshoeing as well. So overwhelmingly, people said, 75% said to all the above pretty much. And yes to only winter activities was 13%, and then the night tubing with lights was 5%. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so the survey was primarily written on an assumption that we had made that we should dream big with this project, and as we were dreaming big, we did scale back quite a bit. What have we learned? Well, we learned if we were going to have, say, a rope tow or something, you basically by law need to have staff there, and we're not really in the business of starting a business as a chamber leadership project. Of course, shoot for the stars. That's something that park districts across the country have been able to deliver. If that's something that's to your interest across the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, there are parks-sponsored ski hills, park-sponsored tubing facilities, of course, that they have for their residents, and it could be something that you contemplate as a complementary activity for the winter, say relative to Raging Rivers as a seasonal summer attraction with staffing and things like that. But testimonials provided are, I'll summarize it, that folks want this. These are Mandan residents that provided these testimonies. We have a couple more that essentially say the sledding hills that we go to are pretty small in Mandan. They're maybe on the side of a hill at a playground or something like that. And if you go too fast, you're headed right towards the swing set. So we think getting it in an area where that's the dedicated activity would be wise. And in Sunset Park, we have minimal conflicts. We think that could be worked through to be able to market it in that part of our community. So getting into the why a little bit, of course, it's located in Mandan. It's on your property. So if similar to all the other things, a skate park, right, you have your liability taken care of for folks responsibly using it. When you actually take a look at the slope, the hill would essentially have the similar pitch and length and run as JC Park does on Century Avenue in Bismarck. Of course, not as close to parking or the warming house, but similar pitch and long-range plans could bring the top of the sledding hill much closer to city rights of way and things like that, of course, as we expand west, hopefully. Again, owned by y'all, Mandan Park District. And then there is parking that is owned by the Park District adjacent to this area. The skating rink is something that could be retrofitted. I know in recent years, the department did make some changes to drainage that could affect the ability to turn it on this winter, for example, but low-hanging fruit to be able to fix that, we think. And then the ability to have a turnkey restroom facility at the Brave Center, for example, or at the All Seasons Arena. There's a lot of northeast-facing slopes, and why you'd want a northeast-facing slope, of course, is you don't really get that long afternoon sun where you do with a south or a southwest-facing slope. A nice thing about some of the locations in Sunset Park is you can start your tubing by walking to the top and end it from the bottom, whereas some of the hills, you might have your kids at the bottom after their last run and they're too tired to get back to the top and could have a fit the whole way home, which we've heard. So the cost of phase one, we think, would be about $28,000 if we were to try and hire someone to do some basic grading. And the reason that basic grading would be necessary would be, say, for example, some rock removal might need to be done. You'd want to have a consistent pitch and a nice run out for the facility. And then things like getting it reseeded, erosion control, and signage. I think based on some engineers' estimates would come in at about $28,000 to get that taken care of. And then as you talk about phase two, some of the things that you see like at the tubing facilities in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, for example, that would come up to $1 million. So we get big really quick with that one. And you can kind of see as you go from there that to create some sort of terrain park, ski hill type facility that they have, say at Highland Hills, Como Park, and Maple Grove, that's where you'd get that 1.6 million based on engineers' estimates and some quotes that we received for it. I'll skip the video in there, but our big ask is, can you take down this sign, and can we work with you to get that sign taken down? Because we have a sign that says no motorized vehicles or sledding, and we think that that should say something else. We think it should say sledding in designated area or something like that, right? But as I've kind of surveyed folks, I think I learned why the sign was put up. I was talking to an old couple as I was walking in the park, and they said, yeah, we used to sled over here, but someone hit the barbed wire fence, and they'd be building jumps to try and get over a barbed wire fence. And it's like, well, of course you guys had to take the sledding out of the park if there's going to be a barbed wire fence that people are climbing over. But we think that we'd be able to collaborate with some folks in the area to try and get this built for y'all. And really tonight we just want to ask for your ability to help support Cole and the team if we can launch this year. Do you have any questions for me or for the rest of the group?
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioner Mutter usually has a few questions. We'll start with him.
The first one's for Dustin. I just want to know how, since I know Michael's going to come up here in a little bit, but how much extra time, if we did something like this, how much extra time, just on phase one, would it take you guys? And do you have enough staff to deal with something like this?
So just the sledding hill, I mean, you're relying on snow and the snow to lay in there. Access to the sledding hill, we're cleaning the trail. I would assume you would access it from the trail. Maybe you have to knock down the edges of the trails for access. For the sledding hill, little to no time put in. I'm sure there's going to be some cleanup. I know I've taken my kids over to JC Park, and there's broken sleds and trash and stuff like that. We do have a trash can at the bottom of the hill. We'd hope people would utilize. So I'm sure there's going to be some, but I don't see. Do you see a whole lot of grooming going on in the hill?
Like to keep it natural.
Okay.
And then Andrew got an email already from me today, but I'm going to bring up again is, do you think we can do it there without affecting the bike path, or I call them bike path, the walking path or anything like that, or even the Frisbee golf? Is there a way we can do it without affecting that? The sign's a minor thing to me, so.
Yeah, Commissioner Mutter, it's good that you brought it up. So you learn a lot on a record snow year. You can't tell what's underneath all that stuff, right? So Based on our location scouting, when there was 8 feet of snow on the ground, this looked incredible, and we were dead set on exactly what you're looking at right here. And then the snow melted, and you start to see some conflicts that you just can't see on an aerial, for example. So that's where the location might need to be tweaked some. But again, Sunset Park's got lots of good topography for something like this. We think with thoughtful planning and coordination, we should be able to manage conflicts with the bike trails, with the frisbee golfing, make sure everyone's on the same page to know if this were to be constructed, what's the expected outcome, and how can we make sure that we get there. But to your point, I think everything should be able to coexist in this area. There isn't a lot of utilization overlap. Of course, it's the benefit is that frisbee golfing and mountain biking are primarily, if not entirely, summer activities, and sledding is entirely a winter activity. So seasonally, we shouldn't have conflict.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Dustin, do we flood that ice rink there now? It's bermed or?
Do not. In my 19 years here, we've never flooded that one. I don't know why they went away from it. I would assume lack of use.
Sure.
Location probably. The hydrant is quite a little ways away. The one thing that has changed, we did add a outfall pipe for the development above there for storm runoff, and it does flow into that skating rink, so we may have to adjust a berm to accommodate for the
Sure.
outfall pipe and stuff like that. But yeah, we don't.
Okay, thanks. Andrew, I know you came here and said you weren't here to talk about planning, but I'm going to open it up here. So expansion to the west and Mandan's got some hurdles, gas lines up to the north. Developers have kind of kicked it a little bit. And, obviously we have some hurdles to Division Street. It doesn't look like this would prevent anything. I mean, if you're just going phase one and grading, but before we'd start looking at warming houses and stuff, I think we'd really want to look at potential west access for Division Street at that point. And if you can, just comment on any recent thoughts on that.
Thanks, Commissioner Melhoff. I'm always happy to talk about city planning, so I don't know when you guys plan to adjourn, but you're correct. There are a lot of hurdles that are going to come up as we try to get west, and that's a very good reason why you shouldn't put any huge investments into this area until there are some definitive decisions made. I think a good action step would be to see the outcomes of the high school placemaking study, because that's going to likely get a little bit more granular and definitive as to which right-of-way should go west. If it's Division 7th or 9th, they're going to have pros and cons to each of them, but something we'll need to get through the high school site as it's redeveloped. That's one of the main priorities of the city, is to identify what is the best way west. With that answer, you might be able to lock in this location, or you might want to look towards another one. And as we talk about what authorizing coal to support this project moving forward might look like, and how the board might support this project going forward, there's a lot of opportunity with the future of the high school site. There's a good slope that is currently owned by the school district today. That might be a good location for a sledding hill, but they want to get out of that area, and maybe a way of supporting this project would be for the park district to take a hilly slope that would be difficult to develop and difficult to be privately held, and bring that in. Now, of course, I want you guys to commit to anything, but those are ways that we might find a home for this project there. But of course, we'd want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row for where the right investment would be.
Well, this is, I don't know if there's documentation on it, but this has been a topic of discussion many, many, many years ago in the Park District, probably 25 years at least. So it's nice to see it revived. I think it'd be a great addition to our community, as long as we can keep the costs at a minimal, initially at least, to see what the usage would be like. And even though knowing that a warming house would increase the usage probably, because then there's a place to go in and get a little warm after a cool sledding trip or whatever. So appreciate you all being here tonight and giving us some additional information. But I'm excited to see it revived and back on the table.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. If I could perhaps just close by making an offer. Of course, I work here, so I'm always happy to see this project through. I believe in the power of public spaces and recreation, particularly in the winter. So you've got me to help with this. And folks from the project team, I know some of us want to see this through, so we'll be able to help with trying to find folks to build this facility, recommending strategies to market this facility between when Dustin joined 19 years ago and now. There's a world of new opportunities to make people aware of ways to recreate. So perhaps there are some strategies that we can use to get folks excited about using public spaces in this part of Mandan. So again, our offer to you guys is to be here to sort of consult, to provide supporting information, if that's data, if that's contractors who want to build this for y'all. And the ask really tonight is to just authorize Cole and his team to keep bearing with us as we figure this one out. Thank you.
So Andrew, I think it's a great idea with Commissioner Scott there is that, Sledding Hill has always come up on surveys, not just the survey that you did, but it's always come up there, and to use our land that isn't used for a good part. I think the big steep hill was also used. Maybe that's why that sign was put up there too, where we're probably looking at more liability and injuries and things like that. Are you you're asking to move forward? I think I think the last partnership we had in the Universal Playground was a great addition to our community, and I think that location and the marketing and that was to the success. I am concerned where it's located. I'm concerned it's kind of tucked back there, kind of like what Dustin had said is, it's back there, and how do we let people know that to put this money into it, that, but combined with a sledding hill, I think an ice skating rink and would make a nice area back there. So, and are you asking for money at this? You're not asking for any financial at this point. And I see you might have some volunteers to help with the grading and moving forward with just getting phase 1 done. Is that correct?
That's correct, President Mischke. For phase 1, we intend to do our best to solicit in-kind labor for this. We have been approached by someone who'd be willing to do it. We were a little nervous about the final condition, what it would be left in, so we graciously asked them to stall maybe a 2024 thing if we can get a few more things hashed out. But at this time, we're not asking for any funding. I won't rule out that we won't, but as of now, I don't see it coming, and we'll do what we can to avoid that.
Okay. All right.
I got one more little thing. It's not much more of a question, but a comment is that I did a little quick text message survey to my friends. And we already have 2 sledding hills in our community. And some of this is our own fault, is that we should talk about them. But I think this is very important for our community because we need some more family type of things to do. And so I'll probably end up making the motion to do this. But I also want to make sure that Cole he really wants to do a rodeo arena, ice rink at the rodeo arena. And I would like to know, I want to make sure that they're working together so we have a cohesive plan to keep moving forward for a lot of that stuff. Thanks.
I guess I will elaborate on Commissioner Mutter's comment regarding the rodeo grounds. So Dave and I have met with Mandan Public Schools, Mandan Hockey Club about, hey, we got this $4 million rodeo arena with lights and 2,000 seats on each side. There's it's called the North Dakota Hockey Day. We talked about how can we bring that over to our community and utilize the rodeo grounds and put up an ice skating rink with the boards, which we don't have competition boards at this time. But the idea would be to have like a game on Friday night where maybe it's the high school teams from both Bismarck, Mandan, girls and boys play each other. And then all day Saturday are the clubs, and then we lead up to where there's a break where maybe we have the Bobcats and University of Mary play and make it a fun weekend of hockey. Sounds easy, but a lot of work and a lot of expense associated with that, and how all the details are to be determined. We did it over, it was one of the snow days, I think, in November that we had kind of a team's call with everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of interest. But do we have the manpower to staff it, clean it, take tickets? Who's paying the the expenses associated with it, and then, there's the concessions that we already have with Horse and Saddle Club. So a lot of moving parts, but I think the concept is there. It's just a matter of how do we get that to that point.
Well, and I think, Cole, you make the point, but is that going to be, I mean, we're going to flood it, if that does happen, we're going to flood this place, and are we going to have it open to public as opposed to, do we make it a year-round thing, I think is what you're asking, Commissioner Mutter, and is it, and maybe we start with the sledding hill and see if we ever get to that point, and then if it doesn't pan out, that we do it at the rodeo grounds. But as far as the other two sledding hills, yeah, do you know how much they're used, Dustin or Cole? I mean, obviously we need snow, but the one at Couchman Park isn't real big.
No, it's not long. It was a good use of the area, the hillside, I guess, put berms on both sides. You need the right amount of snow. This year it seemed like there was too much, and years past there wasn't enough snow. But you saw the neighborhood kids using it and stuff like that. So, Arlen, you're up there. It was getting used this year. Yep.
President Meshke.
When there wasn't too much snow, yeah.
If I can add, those I would consider neighborhood
I would too. Yeah.
ski hills, and this would be more of a destination thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree. Okay, anything else for Andrew or his group? All right, well, Andrew, thank you, and thank your group for helping with this project and get it going. I think it's kind of always been there, but I think it's something that our community would really enjoy if it's done right. So I guess we just need to give them our blessing if we're ready to move forward.
I recommend approval to proceed with the proposed sledding hill as long as there's no impact to the mountain bike trail or Frisbee golf course.
Motion by Commissioner Mutter.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Scott. Any further discussion?
I don't think a little impact to those entities that we can't work through wouldn't be an issue to me. If you got to move a disc golf basket and a couple trees around, I don't, as long as there's no impact, that's kind of strong language to me.
So,
Do you want them to come back if they do
Well, I
move
would
something?
just to me, if you proceed, as long as the disc golf people are okay with it.
so Andrew, I know in our packet it says there were some contacts. Did you reach out and make any contacts with those groups that would maybe be impacted?
President Meshke, it's the busy time of year in city planning world. I have not.
Okay.
I have accepted the contacts. I haven't formulated my thoughts.
I did overlay the disc golf map over your sledding hill, and it looks like you'd throw right through and the basket would be over there. And again, they take the baskets out in the winter. They can take the basket out in the winter and it'd be on the ground, so minimal impact. But you might want to ask the disc golf and park to move a basket, which to me would be an impact, which semantics, I'm sure, but
Yeah, Commissioner Mel, if I may, I would perhaps suggest that any impacts to mountain biking and frisbee golfing are discussed and endorsed by those entities before we move forward with anything.
no further comment.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to item number 2. Michael Svet from Pros Consulting, presentation of park operations maintenance study. Last time we saw you on video, Michael, we're
Yes,
glad
sir.
the weather, you didn't see the snow the last time we were here, but we
I
don't
did
have much
not.
left, so you came at a
I
good
heard
time.
all about snow.
Unless you wanted to go sledding.
Hey, I grew up in Cleveland, so I'm all about winter. Just not these days. So
Glad
thank you.
could make it.
Thank you much for the opportunity. So this is just an update. This is nothing final. The last time that we presented to you all, we had kind of gone through the process of really starting to understand the system, understand the staffing levels, understand how the time was spent, where it was spent. What we've done since then is we've kind of gone through the process of updating your system numbers. And what we mean by this is not to change acreage, not to change square footage, not to change the number of amenities, but how you classify your park system has a lot to do with how you manage and maintain it and the level of effort that goes into managing and maintaining it. So that step that we have taken, I think, has really refined or refined kind of where we're at with the FTE count. Since then, we also did a budget allocation exercise to get an understanding of not just how time was spent park by park, but how you spent money. And how those resources were defined and allocated across your system. And then, of course, we've kind of gotten into the refining of the FTE count. So the system inventory, this is kind of where we're at now. And I think it's really important to recognize that I think where we were before is that you just had a lot more what we were calling developed park acres that required a high level of task and frequency. We have reduced that significantly. We've added more acreage to your natural area parks and added more acreage to your special use parks. And the reason that this is really, really important is it's just a matter of what you do and how often you do it. So a developed park typically has a lot more amenities to it, and those amenities require more task and more frequency. Natural area parks certainly don't require that level of task, frequency, intensity of maintenance resources. And so this has helped to really help us refine and understand how you're spending time and then how that translates to budget and how that also translates to needs. So none of this really changed. We just kind of wanted to give you an understanding that we did go in and refine that. Just again, to reiterate, we're not focused on golf. Golf has it going on, and I think the fact that the weather has broken, they are in full steam ahead for the next few months to get as many rounds in as possible. So we're really focused on parks, grounds, and facility maintenance. Again, this is just an update, but again, this is a lot of stuff that needs to be done, whether it's at parks, whether it's facility maintenance, whether it's aquatics. But when you boil it all down, to about 7 different what we'll call key areas or buckets where lines of service. It's parks maintenance, it's athletic fields, it's facility systems maintenance, custodial services, grounds maintenance, parking lots, sidewalks, just landscape beds, trail maintenance, and then, of course, managing contracts. This is an updated org chart as of this afternoon, and so we just kind of wanted to make sure you reiterate this is pretty thin. There's not a lot of fluff to your parks maintenance staff. Again, I do recognize that you've got a lot of agreements. You do have a lot of contracted maintenance. But again, you've got a lot of system that's being managed very efficiently and maybe almost too efficiently. So this is where we were at after we allocated labor hours. In terms of total amount of FTEs is about 14.7. This, just to reiterate, full-time employee equivalent is not the same as a full-time employee. It's a combined total number of hours of full-time employees as well as part-time and seasonal. So this is what you have right now, 14.7. In terms of where we were at before, and there was a lot of discussion, especially with regards to the 4 additional FTEs for parks and trails. We had originally, just based on the allocation of time, looked at it through the lens of how much time do you spend against the acreages that you have, and what's the FTE count against that best practice in terms of annual labor hours, and we were at 8.1. But then we, did further digging, did further analysis, and started to understand where your FTE count is. So this is what we've done since. Last time we showed a crazy spreadsheet with regards to the allocation of hours and so on and so forth. We have taken your 4 budgets, and we have broken them up across kind of the different park types or locations. So you can see that obviously your largest budget that gets spread out across your system is your Parks and Grounds budget. It's $812,000, but it gets spread out across 12 or 13 different locations and/or functions. Your All Seasons Arena, it's all dedicated just All Seasons Arena. Raging Rivers is Raging Rivers, and of course Starry is Starry, but that's also broken up in with regards to indoors and outdoors. So what this did was gives us an understanding of how you're spending time, or not necessarily how you're spending money against on a per acre, per square footage, per field. Basically, it gives us a unit cost. We're able to take that unit cost that you have right now and compare it against a best practice unit cost for this part of the country. And so what it does is it starts to give us an understanding of, are you spending against a best practice standard with regards to the amount of money that you're spending on developed parks? So for example, developed parks, you're spending $2,500 per acre. An actual best practice unit cost should be closer to $5,000 per acre. So that's where you have about $81,000 additional dollars. That's where the majority of, the amount of money that we are looking at. The other one is with regards to the soccer complex. You are spending about $3,800 per soccer field. A better use or a best practice unit cost for your part of the country would be closer to $6,500 per soccer field. So, long story short, the amount of additional funding is really tied to a couple, three things: your parks, the Star Sports Complex, the athletic fields, in particular soccer, and then the addition of a park superintendent to manage the system forward in terms of using the cutting edge technology and setting up asset management based systems. So the total amount of money that we'd be looking at additional to the overall operating budget would be about $369,000. Of course, not all of that is associated with personnel. Typically, a parks maintenance budget is somewhere between 60 and 70% personnel. We're just using a good figure of about 67% of the total funding needed being dedicated to staffing. Now, this could be staffing in terms of contract. It could be staffing in terms of personnel. Could be full-time, part-time. How does that so that basically gives us almost $290,000 of additional staffing needed. How does that translate to the total FTE count? It's the personnel funding needed, which is the $286,000, divided by an annual hourly wage between a full-time and a part-time, just kind of a blended rate, and divide that by the 1,920 annual hours. So we were at close to 8.1. Now we're at 4.4. And we feel better about that number. And I think the analysis is starting to reveal that, where we were at before was just an initial look and an initial data set, but we needed to dig further, especially the fact that was almost 50%, more than 50% more than the staffing that you have right now. So 4.4 feels pretty good. Again, the majority of that is in developed parks and at the sports complex. This is one thing, though, that we have to keep in mind, and this is a major problem not just here, but across the country. You're leaving money on the table when it comes to part-time staff. So when we talk about the total number of hours and we talk about the resources that are dedicated to managing your system, we're counting that entire $85,000 or how that translates into annual hours. But you're leaving about $30,000 on the table. This is not just unique to you all. This is, a problem across park and recreation systems across the country. There's just not as much part-time seasonal labor out there as there was previously. And you can see the history there. Even if you just go back to, 2017, you left just under $4,000 on the table. Now it's 30. So we have to consider that you're not just short the 4.4, but you're also another 2,000 hours, almost another FTE that is not being, allocated to managing and maintaining your system. So when we start thinking about the FTE count, we think about that in terms of labor hours. We have to come up with strategies that are actually going to use those labor hours, not just find the cheapest alternative, which is in many cases part-time staff because you don't have overhead costs with them. But we have to identify the best possible way to close that gap. So that's going to be part of the challenge going forward. Again, this is just kind of a general summary to make
Michael, can I ask you a question on that
Yeah,
last
yeah.
slide? When you say part-time, do you mean like under 36 hours, or do you mean seasonal?
seasonal.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, this is just to refresh your memory that we looked at staffing levels, we looked at your contributions by third-party contractors, what your total FTE count is, what the best practice FTE count, and then what that additional needs to be. So we have refined basically the column of best practice FTE count needed. We were at 8.1, now we're down to basically somewhere between 4 and 4.4. There are two other steps that we need to do. I need to get out and see your system. And unfortunately, we've had to wait till now because if I would have come earlier, it would have just been seeing snow. So I need to go out and see your system. Yes, I can Google Earth it, and I have done that a couple of times. It'll help in terms of being familiar with the system, but it's also very different to get out and see what it is that we're talking about. So this just doesn't feel like it's a desktop exercise. We're also then going to sit down on Wednesday morning and walk through, we've talked about the amount of staff that you have and where they spend time and how you allocate resources, but what is staff doing? What are the tasks that are being done at developed parks? What are the tasks that are being done on athletic fields? To make sure that we are, the level of effort that's being done is equating to the resources that you have available. So in other words, are we doing the things that we're supposed to be doing with the staff that we have? And are there any gaps? This may change, this may close gaps, this may say, you know what, here's all the things that you should be doing, but you're not doing them. So that means we may have to go back and refine some of those numbers. Or it could be that, you know what, you're doing everything that you need to do and then some. So the conversations between the system tour tomorrow and then the maintenance standard affirmation confirmation will really start to tighten up where you're at from an organizational perspective. Then all of this kind of works through strategic recommendations with staff, organizational structure recommendations, and then a final report in early June. So I know it's a lot of analysis and a lot of numbers, but we're really trying to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned when it comes to this.
Right. Michael, thank you for the update. Any questions or comments?
I got one question. Can you go back to that part-time project real quick here? Is there, and I don't want to get in the weeds here tonight because we're already at time, but are you going to be able to help Dustin or Cole give them some creative ideas of how to find part-time people?
I wish I had a magic. That's a question that keeps getting asked of me across the country.
Why are you all laughing?
How do we get more people? I will tell you that the competition for part-time staff has really been ramped up, in particular by the fast food industry and the offering of benefits. It's really hard to compete with a Chick-fil-A that is going to pay not just $15 to $20 an hour, but also offer benefits in some cases that have long been just attributed to full-time employees. So it's really a matter of understanding not just the money. I mean, we're putting the money up there because it's money, right? But you have to look at this through the lens of labor hours, right? So when you think about $85,500, that's translating. The reason that there's a number there is because this is the amount of labor hours that we need, and this is what we're going to pay them. So this is about labor hours. This is about translating these dollars and cents to labor hours, and then how are we going to make sure that we're not leaving a bunch of labor hours on the table? Does that make sense?
President Meshkin, Commissioner, I think a good comment would be is what Dustin was paying, whatever that first year was, 17 to what we're
yeah.
paying today. I mean, we've definitely done some increases, not only
So
to
even
our,
if we stayed at 17, we'd be even further. What we're
yeah, I
doing
mean,
at
the
17,
amount
we'd be
of
further.
hours that we're, or excuse me, the amount of wages that we're spending
Yeah.
has increased due to the hourly rates that we're paying, but the staffing that we're getting for the numbers really hasn't. And that's where I think you can kind of elaborate a little bit where you were and where you are.
Yeah. So, 3-4 years ago, we were able to get some of the 6-month seasonal staff, and now we're down to 2.5 month seasonal staff. We got out of doing the cleanup at the racetrack and the rodeo just because we didn't have the staff to do it. Staff burnout was crazy. By the time we went through McQuaid's and the rodeo and back-to-back races and a few national softball tournaments, by the 1st of August, my seasonal staff was leaving. We had, for up until about 4 years ago, we were able to find a seasonal staff, 6-month seasonal staff, and some of them worked out where they've become full-time employees of the park district. But you can't find that seasonal staff. I mean, you're asking somebody to work weekends, work evenings, do everything from working in a pit to fixing sprinklers to cleaning toilets to everything. You need a well-rounded person, and you need a reliable person. We're spread out. You know how big the system is. You're sending a seasonal staff out to go clean a park, and hopefully you can check up on them once in a while. So that's the big difference. You're still getting the seasonal staff, the high school kids, good work ethic. Last year we had almost a complete turnover of high school kids, seasonal staff, where they didn't take advantage of working all week and then working the weekend for the overtime hours, where the staff 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where we almost were at our budget, they knew how to work the system. I mean, we needed them, and they knew how to work it. Events makes a big difference. We're adding facilities. We're adding the rodeo grounds. We've, look at what Eagles Park has done by adding the indoor shelter at Eagles Park. We went from seasonal shelter rentals, for 8-9 months to year-round shelter rental. So we're adding stuff, but we're not getting the seasonal staff to backfill it.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Michael. We'll look, so as we budget, and I know Cole and Terry and I met a few weeks ago, and, I got to give them credit. They're already looking at how we're going to add some FTEs and how we can slowly bring those back into our budget. Also with our next agenda item that's up, as far as our maintenance building. And I guess I'll give kudos to them because they've already kind of figured out a good way to do both with staying mill neutral. And that's, I think, one of the things that even if we're mill neutral, going into next year's budget. When do we actually approve next year's?
It'll be first, the meeting in August is our first reading, and their final reading in September. But to elaborate, we have 2 FTEs right now in the budget for park operations. One is kind of dedicated for the All Scenes Arena. Maybe it's only 6 months, and then 6 months somewhere else. We don't know yet. We still got to kind of massage through how we're going to operate that facility. And then one is to be determined. Is it down at park operations, or is it between the sports complex and parks, or is it all Star in? We don't know. But we have 2 full-time employees built into the budget, along with a third, which would be in accounting, that we used to have one FTE that we didn't fill in COVID years. So in essence, we have 3 full-time.
That we have a part-time position now for.
Yeah, they're part-time now, but we're going to go back to full-time.
Yeah. So they're already working on that, knowing whether we get, 8.1 would have been really tough, I think. But 4, I think we can continue to build that in. And
Yeah, and normally when you're ramping staff up, you're adding FTEs. It's not a
Yeah.
one-year bump. Usually you do it over a couple 3-year period.
Yeah. So, anyway. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Item number 3, consider for approval revenue bond for park operations maintenance building. That you, Cole?
Yep. So, President Meskey and Commissioners, as you know, we started the park operations building in February of 21, and obviously with the construction costs that we dealt with back then, we chose to kind of put it on hold for a year. We had to do some redesign of the project, and now we have open bids, and we are actually potentially breaking ground this week. We thought we'd see a little more work done last week, but they mobilized a little bit last week, and now this week, hopefully we'll see some groundbreaking happen. But with that, as we know, at our retreat, and I put the copy of the minutes in there of November 21 of 22, when we approved the bids to proceed, was that we would pay $1.3 million in cash. $1 million of that is coming from our general fund reserves that we had restricted those funds over the years, and then $300,000 was coming from the capital improvement. The difference is where we're going to pay for, and it comes out to be a little over $1.8 million. The exact number is $1.823 million. There might be a few additional fees associated with that. What we're here tonight is to ask approval to move forward with Colliers to sell a revenue bond. So in your packet is kind of an estimate based on recent revenue bonds that have gone through. As you can see, our payment's going to be right around that, give or take, high side about 135 to 138. It is callable every 5 years. So as the interest rates drop in the future, like we did with Raging Rivers revenue bond, we then would be able to refinance it every 5 years and take advantage of lower interest rates at that time. So before you would be approval, again, Colliers will go sell the bonds. They will come back at June or potentially a special meeting to execute the bonds at that time when we know what the rates will be and the terms, which again is a 20-year term for $1.8 million. And at that time, then we can approve the exact interest rate and exact P&I interest. So tonight's just approval to proceed with the revenue bond with Colliers in the amount of $1.8 million.
And I said it earlier, but I want to say it again. This is staying mill neutral.
Yep.
Your plan and through more
Yep.
valuation coming through with we're able to do this without raising mills. So again, I was going to say it at the end, but applaud you and Terry for fitting that in, because that's not what we wanted to do. It's kind of the direction the board gave at November's meeting. So
just to add on how we were able to do that is obviously we got the new valuation increase. So we wouldn't be increasing mills, but we will be taking the new valuation, which
correct.
It's in that 10 to 12% range. So we would be accepting the new valuations and any new properties coming out of the property to make this do that. The other addition was that we had asked last year approval to pay off a year early the Starion Sports Complex land. So that was like $130-some thousand. So we paid that off, which then allows us to get this fit in. So it's kind of neutral right there. So the debt that came off is being absorbed by the new debt. And then the FTEs, the 3 FTEs that I mentioned, allows us the opportunity with the new valuation and growth to be able to take those on.
Okay. We would need a motion to proceed with Colliers Securities, if that's what we want to do.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to award Collier Securities for a revenue bond in the amount of $1.8 million.
Motion by Commissioner Freilich,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Melhoff. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mutter,
Aye.
Commissioner Freilich,
Aye.
Commissioner Melhoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott.
Aye.
Aye from me as well. Motion carries. Item 4, consider for approval payment of $38,689 for change orders associated with Mandan Tennis Center from City of Mandan.
President Meskey and Commissioners, as I mentioned last month in our report, just that this was a change order that took place 7 months ago. It kind of came in late after the fact, some discussions with Justin Proseth in regards to this. It all relates to the timing. So if you saw the kind of the timeline and information in your packet, the sanitary and the manholes were delayed because of some things that happened down south and deliveries of materials. And then we moved forward a year later with the tennis center project. And so long story short, I think is what the manholes would have to be raised in order to meet what we did for our site for the tennis center in the parking lot. If we did not put in, as you saw on the map, that northern portion of 16th Street we would have had to wait, and the parking lot would not have been done for that first football game in the fall of '22. So it was a matter of just trying to get everything together. We weren't told at that time that there was going to be a change order in that amount. And then obviously 7 months later, there's a change order for more engineering in regards to the city. The city felt we should cover 100% of it. We agreed to pay half of it, which I think some of it was directly related to our expense associated with the manholes and the timeline of trying to get our construction project done by November of '22 for the opening of the tennis center. So things happen in construction. It was a $1.8 million street project. It's the only change order that we received was about $38,000, as you see in your packet. So,
So this is for half the cost. We split it with the
correct.
city. Okay.
And originally, we talked about special assessing it back to the park district, but this improvement district has been closed. So in order to special assess, we'd have to create a new district. It'd have to be over 5 years, and we'd have to pay 10% on top of that. So we just felt for this 38,000 some change, let's just pay cash out of the general fund.
Cole, just for a point of clarification, can you clarify that engineering firm you mentioned?
As far as with 16th Street,
Yeah.
yeah, more engineering. Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner Milhoff. Questions, or how would you like to proceed?
I would recommend the approval of the $38,689.50 change order related to the 16th Street Northeast Improvement District.
Motion by Commissioner Scott,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Freilich. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mutter,
Aye.
Commissioner Freilich,
Aye.
Commissioner Milhoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott.
Aye.
Aye from me as well. Motion carries. Item number 5, update on construction projects, Raging Rivers, Rodeo Arena, Mandan Tennis Center and Pickleball Courts, and Community Gardens.
So, President Meskey and Commissioners, obviously, we're into the spring and everything's getting ready to open up here in the next 30 days. So I thought we'd just kind of give you an update as a lot of these projects started in '22 and didn't get finished because of some of the weather and carried over into '23. So Raging River's exterior is about 95% done. All the liner's been put into the lazy river. The coping has been done. That was done last year. They came back, 2 weeks ago to finish out the bottom of the lazy river. The kiddie pool liner's been added. And the interior, we're about 95% completed there too. I know President Mesh, you got to see a tour of it. If you'd like to ever come out to the building, you're in an area. Definitely a nice improvement to that area with the new expanded concessions. We flipped the tickets areas to the west side where it used to be on the southeast side of the building, so allowed us to have some walk-in coolers, more space, more lines for concessions, so a nice project in there. As we remember, it was a $541,000 ARPA grant that we received, and we had to match dollar for dollar. We've spent right around $1.07 million to date, so we submitted that last reimbursement. Should receive that back here in May, and I think there's a few contingency dollars that we'll have to submit in June, but that project will be wrapped up. And we're scheduled to open May 31st at Raging Rivers. So the timing has been perfect. We were a little worried with the weather, but everything seems to be falling into place. The Rodeo Arena, right now to date, we've spent about $2.8 million. The total construction project was $3.1. Things are rolling out there this week. If you haven't driven by, Bowers Excavating is putting a lot of dirt in. The Mandan Rodeo Committee worked over the weekend and got all the chutes and the back panels in, so nice volunteer opportunity with them, along with Mandan Horse and Saddle, I believe, submitted some individuals out there, but we're cruising. June 4th is our first date. We are waiting on a switch gear for our electrical panel to operate the entire complex that was ordered last July. Has not arrived yet, so we're hoping in the next 2 to 3 weeks it does show up on site. If not, we're going to do a plan B, which assumes what we did at the tennis center and just have a generator on site for the events. But we have time for the 4th of July rodeo, but we are waiting on some materials to arrive to finish that out. I'll let Dustin, he was out there today on a construction project on some fencing, kind of wrap up the rodeo one.
Sure. Like Cole said, Bowers is moving a lot of dirt, sands in the arena. They're spreading topsoil around everything up towards the ticket booth, pavilion, around the backside of the bleachers. So they're moving along right quick. Dakota Fence is out there putting the perimeter fence up. Kind of had to work hand in hand with the rodeo committee to get where the gates needed to be in the right location. So that they'll be there this week. When Bowers gets done with the black dirt, then we'll move in and try and get everything conditioned and ready to plant grass and hydro seed everything. With the right conditions and the right timeline, maybe we can get a little bit of grass or get some green showing for the 4th of July rodeo. But it'll be nice to get the perimeter fence, chain link fence done so we can enclose it and kind of keep it secure in there. Electricians working out there every day. They're putting putting the product to the light poles and hanging lights in the pavilion and the ticket booth. But like Cole said, it's the main switch gear that's going to be the hold up there. Cross our fingers. Hopefully we can get this all completed. But yeah, things are moving out there. A lot of traffic. We had egg days out there, so we had to be careful with traffic out there. The races have started, so yeah, there's a lot of things moving out there. Okay, and then update on the community gardens. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Commissioner Milhoff has
Yeah.
a question.
With that electrical panel they're waiting on, is there any concern? There's a concert there June 30th, I believe.
No, it's the same thing that happened up at the tennis center. We were waiting on the same switch gear for that electrical panel too, so we'll just have to bring a portable generator in to power everything up, and we should be fine.
So I'd power the lights?
Yep.
So the band's system would be?
I haven't dug into that
yeah.
level of what type of power we may need. We may need 2 generators, but
Sure.
I'm hoping we don't have to deal with that. But we talked about it last week as a plan B, saying what is our plan if this switch gear doesn't show up?
Sure.
So
And one more question. There's that existing driveway pavement right off of the street there behind the bleachers. And I saw they staked gates. Are food trucks expected to go through there or not? It looked like the gate was real thin compared to the driveway. I was just curious if they're going to try to make that turn.
It's a 20-foot gate. There's going to also be a 10-foot gate on the ticket booth side. I would assume that's what they're looking at is bringing the food trucks into that 20-foot gate.
Looked narrow with the bleachers with the gate there, so
Yeah.
I was just curious if you knew anything. No other questions? Thanks.
Then update on the community gardens. Bowers was in over the weekend to finish tamping the water line in and straightening out the area. We did start leveling the 8 garden spots, I should say, getting ready for the 100 plots, or 80 plots, sorry, to get ready for planting. So we started tilling last week, continued today. Last Thursday, we staked out the perimeter of each one. And then once we get done tilling, then Park District staff will go in there, plot them out, and Extension Service will go and number them all. So we're hoping to beat the rain and have it done by Thursday.
Got a lot reserved. Have you heard?
Yeah, they're all full, and they've got one of the no-till spots reserved also.
Okay.
So, and then there will be some finishing up. We pulled the gravel off the driveways of the old community gardens, so we've got that to lay down for a base, and then Extension Service was able to secure a grant to buy some crushed asphalt. So we'd like to make a main road coming in from the west and then going out to the north, and then the rest will be just as we have material, or we worked with the Extension Service to purchase material in the past also. So we'll just add on from there.
Okay. Thanks, Dustin.
And then the last item was just the tennis center and the pickleball courts. We did a walkthrough punch list on Friday afternoon with Yaden. They had to come back, and there's obviously the interior of the dome was dirty when we had to inflate it, so we didn't have a whole lot of time to get that clean because of the short turnaround with the weather. They came back and cleaned everything that was white 30 feet and up that they could reach with the equipment they had on hand. A lot of the little imperfections that we had around the edge, I guess I'll call it the footing, had to be tucked in. Some of the electrical cables had to be addressed. We had to move some of the cables that interfered with the pickleball courts. We moved them over slightly on the west wall. And then when you walk into the tennis center where we have the dividing curtains, one was moved 2 feet to accommodate the bleachers that are coming in for the WDA tournament that we're having here at the end of the month. So all those were pretty much addressed. On the exterior, all the landscaping and seating has been in. Still have some issues with some rock piles that have been put together that need to be removed around the perimeter of the site. The pickleball courts, the fencing's up, and the north side of the fencing of the air handling unit is completed. But the pickleball courts itself, obviously, we were hoping this week with the overnight temps had to be 45 degrees or higher. We're at that right now, but now we have rain in the forecast, so we don't want to start a project and have to stop. So we're going to wait till next week to get that in. And if you haven't heard, we have that 48 state challenge of pickleball. We've been communicating that will be this Sunday. Unfortunately, the outdoor courts won't be ready, so we're going to have it on the inside of the complex, and the Porter family is going to play their individuals. But we're hoping that the pickleball courts can be done before Memorial Day weekend. He says he needs 7 to 10 days from start to finish, as long as we have the proper temps, so it could be close.
Okay.
And that's all I have to add.
Okay. Any questions on the updates? And Cole, anything else for staff reports?
So I will shoot an email out probably tomorrow. NRPA National Conference just opened up today. It's in Dallas, Texas. I can't remember. I think it's the day after our park board meeting, the second week. That usually you fly out Monday after a park board meeting, and we come back Thursday or Friday. But in prior years, we usually have one commissioner attend, and myself and a manager. So it is in Dallas. So I will shoot that information out. If we can, maybe next month, get approval to attend for those individuals that may want to go. I'll see how much funding we have. Maybe we can send 2 if no other managers want to go, but we'll kind of look at it that way.
So I've been to one, and Commissioner Melhoff, so if there's others that are interested in attending that,
You wouldn't like
it's
it,
good.
Lane. I better go there.
Will I ask any questions?
Questions are good, Commissioner Mutter. Okay. Dustin, anything else? Hey, Dave, you still back there? There you are.
Yeah, Commissioners, just a quick update. We have that NSIC baseball tournament starts Wednesday at the Memorial Ballpark. Goes through Saturday. If it gets rain, then we'll finish it on Sundays. So it'll be busy down there. And then, like Cole said, we open Ranger Rivers on May 31st. So we're just getting that, continue to get ready for that and stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you. Arlen?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Mutter?
The rodeo arena is just about done, and I know Jason Middlestad way too long probably, but I really want to make sure that he gets a lot of credit for getting this rodeo arena and stuff like that. Him and his staff have raised $4.1 million. Did I get that right? And he's looked for this for 6 years, and he's got it. And I just want to make sure that he gets a lot of credit for it. And the second part of this is that I've been down to the dog park, and my dog barks a lot there, kind of like me. But anyway, some people put a bridge out there during the mud and stuff like that. And I just want to tell, and Dustin probably agree with me, it's really nice to have great citizens like that will help us out. So I just want to thank the whole town of Mandan and Dustin.
Commissioner Freilich?
I've got nothing.
Commissioner Melhoff? Commissioner Scott?
Well, golf season is upon us. I just wanted to shoot out a big thank you to Brent and Garrett and all the staff out at the Prairie West and getting the Muni ready to roll. Both courses are open and ready to play, so get out there and get your tee times.
All right. Item number 7, can we pay our monthly bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the monthly bills.
Motion by Commissioner Melhoff,
Second?
second by Commissioner Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Future meetings for Mandan Park Board Commissioners, June 1st, 2023, Dale Paulke Arena at Dakota Centennial Park. Rodeo Grounds ribbon cutting is at 11:30 a.m. on that day. We're all supposed to be there, right, Cole, if we can? Okay, and then on June 12th, our next regularly scheduled board meeting will be right here at City Hall at 5:30 p.m. We get a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Mutter,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Freilich. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.